What's really interesting to me is this talent and culture. We talked about it a little bit from a product management standpoint, but changing the way that we operate creates a lack of safety for a lot of people. Talent and culture is interesting to me. Hiring the right people for the job that have the right sort of intrinsic skill sets and beliefs is important. Like there's actually things that you have to be able to be good at some of these jobs. Probably 60 to 70% of your organization doesn't actually have to be on the right-hand side of that board at all. They don't have to be Basecamp 3, 4, or 5. 60% of your organization can just be Basecamp 1 or 2. And there are people that are perfectly wired to operate in a relatively stable, relatively static sort of maintenance. I'm not competing on change in these capabilities. So I think we have to be thoughtful about who can deal with ambiguity and operate with change and who needs to be really stable and steady. And that's something we have to pay attention to as we're staffing our organizations. There are managers that are better at that. You wouldn't want me managing your Basecamp 1 and 2 stuff, I'll tell you that, right? But I'll do your 4 and 5 stuff and you'd be happy with the result minutes. So the talent and culture thing becomes very interesting because what we see in a lot of cases is we don't know the nature of the people that should be in the job. Sometimes we hire from resumes or sometimes we put people in something they're interested in, right? You're also, I'm never gonna play second row in a rugby game. I was a pretty good rugby player for a long time. I never played second row because I'm not 6'4" and I don't weigh 300 pounds, right? But I was good at what I did, but I couldn't play that job. So you don't put people in a job they can't do even if they want to, because it looks like a fun job. You don't put people in that don't have the basic wiring and intrinsics. And so we have to be thoughtful about that. So I'm not gonna put somebody in charge of a Basecamp 4 or 5 team that will not change the way they're doing things because they're wired to always hold to the old rules, and they're not gonna participate in the continuous improvement game. I can go put them on a Basecamp 1 or Basecamp 2 thing, because as long as we don't break stuff down there, it's probably pretty good. Not perfect, that's a way better place for them. Our training in our organizations and our elevation stuff for people. Most of our training for these new roles, we're throwing a lot of new words out there, right? And I realize that you've been struggling with it for 10 years and just wrestled it to the ground. But the reason it was impossible is because you're operating in an irrational system. We're gonna solve it in a rational way, and you're gonna be happy. She became very happy with it over time, but it was just a moment for her. But we didn't do a good job of explaining and training and elevating their QA people to create safety for them in the change that we're making. I think the change management and roles across the board is way more important in the career path, because if you go off the shelf and you go buy any Scrum thing, any safe training, any product training anywhere, they're not gonna teach you how to think and operate appropriately in this model, because this model is emerging, it's changing, it becomes a bigger game. So I think we have to be really thoughtful about how we manage talent and how we set people up for safety. And it actually matters. We have to also get managers to understand that career pathing thing has become such a big blocker in a few organizations. I've got one that has a bunch of union people in the development and in the data center. Like you can't sidestep those requirements when the union's there, right? So I think this talent thing becomes a really big area for us to pay attention to, and I do think that it's an obstacle and a blocker. We can go form our little special teams and build some websites, but we're talking about transforming organizations. We got to rethink how we're standing up talent and culture. And then the last one, and probably the most important one, is around leadership. And the one thing that we've been talking a lot about today is building a trustworthy system. We've been talking about designing an organization. We've been talking about creating alignment between concerns, organizational concerns, the organization. So what leadership becomes is people who are in leadership roles focusing on building the system that can operate the way that we need to. They're working on the system, not in the system. Now, they need to be aware of what's in the system, and sometimes we have to push and shove and kick things through the door. Right? Still has to happen. But if you had to push and shove and kick things through the door to make it work, we need to go figure out why we were there and start redesigning the system. I think this is true at all levels of leadership in the organization. This concept of moving towards a model of continuous improvement is about building leaders that understand that we got to build systems and training them to understand how systems work. What does it mean to be agile? What does it mean to be product focused? What does it mean to be financially responsible, making good business decisions? What does it mean to apply lean principles in these areas? What does it mean to actually empower people, right? What does it mean to create a system that I can trust to delegate into to empower people to do something they couldn't do before? All right, how do I get, like the Lockheed Martin gentleman talked, how do I get people performing way above their level? Like this new system elevates some people to perform better than they ever performed before. So this concept of how we elevate leadership and train leadership is important. Somebody made a joke about 20 years ago to me that we're gonna have to wait for the current generation of leaders to die off before we can actually start making this change. So it's now 20 years in, and I think that we've got leaders that understand where we're trying to go, how to get there. So we got to keep moving this forward. So achieving business agility is not a technology effort, right? It matters, and it's critical, and it must be done well, but it's not the anchor. All of the organizational concerns must be considered and adapted. Creating the organizational conditions to achieve capabilities while responsibly maintaining the ongoing organizational concerns is a first-class consideration of where we're going as we lead into business agility.